Why do bad things happen to good people? And how can you make sure that bad things don't happen to you? You see, I've said before that the innocent are the wager in this game of life. They are the price we pay for our evil deeds. The things we do out of selfishness, out of our own personal gain. We take from others and give to ourselves. Just like in the animal kingdom, there are prey animals and predators. The predators take and consume, and the prey animals give. They give their life. So oftentimes good people are at the mercy of forces outside of their control. And this is also why we need an equally powerful force to protect the innocent from those monsters, from the barbarians at the gates. Otherwise, evil has free reign. That is why we must become strong enough to protect everybody we love. Somebody has to be the strong foundation, a safe space, a wall of protection. And if it is not there, then those who are good and those who are innocent are vulnerable and at risk for being attacked. Most importantly, perhaps we have to conquer our own selves to ensure that we do not cause or add on to any suffering in our life. Because as it's been said, the boat doesn't sink from the water outside of the ship, but the water that gets in. Oftentimes, the sure way to destroy something is to destroy it from within. In the same way, it's not often that our life circumstances or things outside of us are that which bring us down, but it is the evil within our own hearts. And so freeing ourselves from the negativity within protects us from the negativity in the world. But you see, bad things happen to good people, and sometimes life seems unfair because there is a very big part of the universe, of our reality, that is indifferent, that it's mathematical and calculating. 1 + 1 = 2, and it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. What does this mean? This means that even if you're a good person, if you allow the fear in, which a lot of good people do, a lot of good people are concerned for others. They have a lot of worry and stress and fear. If they make a mistake, they might feel shame or guilt because they've violated their moral code. And so they feel negative. So they allow the negativity in, and it destroys them from within. Good people are also probably more likely to be traumatized. And if they don't heal that trauma, then it doesn't matter whether they're a good person or a bad person. That's going to have consequences in their life. Trauma can manifest as disease or unfortunate life circumstances. They may be a good person, but there is something from within that is killing them. I think the core essence of why bad things happen to good people is the archetype or the story of the martyr. Jesus Christ, for instance, is the ultimate symbol of that story. The best possible person experiencing the worst possible fate. Although in the story of Jesus Christ, that served a purpose for the world, and it happened the way it was supposed to happen. But the problem with the martyr is that it lacks a bit of wisdom. For instance, if you are on the Christ path, the path of the heart, you give everything to the world and take no concern for your own self. You give until the world takes everything from you, and then you die. This is perhaps the most difficult path to take in life. And in itself, there's nothing wrong with it. But in a way, it's the same as its polar opposite. That is, the path of selfishness, where you take, and you give nothing in return. One lacks morality, and the other lacks wisdom. And so to avoid becoming the martyr and experiencing a terrible fate in life, one must have the wisdom to say, I also need to take care of myself in order to serve other people. You can't always think about others without also thinking about yourself, because we are all connected and we are all one. And it is not accurate to say that others have more value than you. And it is also not accurate to say that you have more value than others. And I'm talking value specifically in terms of our God essence. In terms of the mind and body, we all have very much different value to give. And you see, the path of giving is the most virtuous path. But at the same time, you also want the wisdom to receive. Because if you give everything, you won't last long enough to keep giving. You don't want to be a one and done. You want to be reusable. You want to be able to keep giving over the long term. And sometimes this means putting your foot down and having strong boundaries. Not giving to the wrong people. Allowing others to give to you. This requires you to value your own self to the point where you don't allow the negativity in. Because you know that with all the fear and the worry and the shame and the guilt, it does nothing but hurt you. And as a good person, there's this kind of idea that, but if I don't feel these ways, then maybe I'm not as good of a person as I thought. And I would say, forget about being a good person. It is precisely that identity that blinds us from seeing all the ways that we are not. Because allowing yourself to be hurt by negativity contradicts being a good person. Because a good person wouldn't allow themselves to be hurt. Just the same as you wouldn't take advantage of another person, why would you let anyone else take advantage of you? Just as you wouldn't hurt another person, how could you let another person hurt you? And so if you are on the path of selfishness like I was, then your goal is to be more kind and compassionate and giving and loving. And if you are already giving and loving and compassionate, then your job is to be a bit more selfish. Because you realize through wisdom that only when you are at your best can you best serve others. You become like a triceratops. When the big bad T-Rex comes to eat you, you have horns to defend yourself. But if you have no defense mechanism, then you're done. But if we are attached to this image of ourselves, this idea of who we think we should be, then we might not let it go in time. We can often convince ourselves that we don't want to be like the enemy. The enemy has horns and claws, and it terrorizes and it eats and it consumes. And we don't want to be like that because we understand the suffering that it creates. And yet we have no choice, because without our own claws and horns, we are vulnerable. And so the best thing we can do for others and ourselves is to have some teeth, be able to say no, be capable of putting your foot down and setting boundaries, and valuing yourself enough to say, this is what I will not tolerate. Even when it comes to our own selves and our own thoughts and these negative emotions, I may have felt like I did something wrong, but I will not let the guilt consume me, because then you'd just be feeding the enemy. That doesn't make much sense now, does it? Helping the enemy to destroy you by using the mask of morality. In the name of being a good person, I destroy myself. I'm not saying the martyr doesn't have its great benefits. It is perhaps one of the most beautiful stories in existence. But at the same time, it's not exactly necessary. It's more often than not because we fear change, or because change is difficult, that we refuse. What this comes down to is having self-awareness, being aware of your strengths and your weaknesses, and then using your strengths to build upon your weakness. So those who are selfish are weak in compassion, and the same with the kind person. There is no choice but to develop a bit of selfishness. Otherwise, an underlying resentment might develop for life, for the people around you, because deep down you will know that you are not being nourished the same as you are nourishing other people. And you might feel empty or barren, or feel like, or just that you're not being appreciated. And so that which you do not get from others, you have to give to yourself. You appreciate yourself, you love yourself, you give yourself things, and you do this by being more selfish. That is how good people protect themselves from the evil in the world.